Welcome back to the Made for This podcast, where we want to help you discover, develop, and live your Made for This. Now, if you are joining us on YouTube, we are in a sweet new studio setup, and I would love to say that this is Nikki and I's new studio, but actually it's not. It is the studio of the church that Nikki and I both attend, as well as the studio where our guest today works. And today we're going to be interviewing Jimmy Marshall, and I have to say, Jimmy is about 10 years younger than he should be and about 10 years more accomplished than he should be. I've had the privilege of knowing Jimmy for the last few years and have learned a ton of things from Jimmy. So, Jimmy, just go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, anything you want the world to know.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you, Josh, for that kind introduction. And so like Josh said, I work here at One Life Church here at the East Campus and do a lot of the stuff that I set up the studio. I do a lot of the video work. And then more specifically, I've been working a lot with our YouTube channel. So we've gone from basically 0 subscribers to now we just hit 23,000 subscribers.
Oh.
And we've had a video that hit 1 million views, one that hit 500,000, one that hit 200,000, and a couple that are over 100,000. So YouTube is kind of my passion as far as and especially since I get to do it as my day job. So I like that I get to do that all day.
Yeah, I actually, on the very first episode of this podcast, I was critiquing myself and the lighting in our little studio that we have. And I said that I'm going to have to reach out to somebody after this episode to see if they can give me some tips. And that someone is Jimmy.
Hey, I'm the guy behind the scenes making it work. Yeah, so lighting, video, all that kind of stuff. And then specifically with YouTube, that's kind of what I like doing all day.
Yeah, well, it's great stuff. If you haven't seen any of the One Life Network YouTube videos,
yeah, follow us. Check us out on there. We talk about Joe Rogan a lot. That was our 1 million view video, so it was good. But I mean, kind of the idea behind that is Brett, our lead pastor, and then Chris, our next gen pastor. We look at kind of the cultural conversations that are happening in the world, and then try to walk people through how can we approach this from a Christian worldview.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we do on the One Life Network channel.
Very cool. Well, we'll leave a link to that in the show notes so people
Absolutely.
can find that. So, Nikki, you want to kick us off here with our fun question?
Yeah. So I was thinking, I had a question and then I'm going to pivot because I was just thinking about something because we've had a conversation
Oh, boy.
before that I think we all have a different perspective on. So generation wise, do you consider yourself Gen Z?
I identify as Gen Z.
Okay. So you identify as Gen Z. Josh would be like right side, like you're
Boomer.
for sure millennial. And then I am like on the
Boomer.
elder millennial end.
Yeah.
So when you need an answer to something,
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna you have a question in your head, a thought pops up and you want an answer. Where do you go first? Like, where's your first inclination to search something to get information?
Google.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Google.
Well, I would use Siri on my phone, but my Siri does not work very well. So I'll ask it a question. I'm like, this is just terrible. So if I have any kind of question, or if someone asks me a question, typically I'll go to Google immediately.
Okay. I could have swore once you told me that you go to YouTube.
Well, so the interesting thing about YouTube is because it's the second biggest search engine in the world. So if you Google something, typically it will give your answer in the form of a YouTube video.
Okay.
In like the first couple links. So instead of opening up the YouTube app and trying to find it there, I do Google just in case it's not on YouTube.
Oh,
But then that's kind of a catch-all where YouTube is typically the place where I end up getting the answer.
Okay. So when everything comes up, you're probably going to click on a YouTube video.
100%.
then. What about you?
So, funny enough, I think that here just in the last, I don't know, year, I used to be strictly, I'm going to Google no matter
Encyclopedia.
what. Wikipedia. It's like, no, now I tend to start on YouTube.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't used to. I think that it just spending a lot of time with you, Jimmy,
Yeah.
and spending a lot of time working the platform and just being on YouTube. I've learned that a lot of times I can get more of my answers there, but that is relatively new. Although another one that I've been going to recently, not for like specific answers, but for depending on the use case,
Yeah.
I'll go to ChatGPT to ask a question.
That's true.
And it doesn't give me. There's certain things you can't ask ChatGPT if you want the right answer.
That's true.
But there's certain things that that's where I'm going to go first, and it tends to do okay.
I've been using that for complicated math problems. I don't know why me and Malia were trying to figure this out, but we were going to lunch one day, and I thought we should start a chicken farm. And we're not farmers, and we don't go outside or anything like that. But I'm like, because I've heard people sell chicken eggs, and you can get sell a dozen of chicken eggs for like $2 or $3. So I'm like, how many chickens would you need if a chicken lays an egg a day to make $100,000 a year?
Oh.
How many chickens would you need?
Okay.
And my math skills. I'm like, I could probably figure out if I sat
Yeah.
down, wrote it all out, and did that. But I asked ChatGPT, and not only did it give me the answer, but it also like walked me through how you solve the problem.
Mm.
So
Oh,
doing those complicated math problems that are kind of applicable to the real world, ChatGPT is very great for that.
I try just not to do complicated math problems,
That's
but
true.
yeah. I
but
don't either.
if that's a pretty interesting practical. Like I want to make $100,000 with eggs.
Yeah. How many chickens do I need if they lay one egg a day?
Mm.
And I sell them for $3 a dozen.
Did you find out what's the answer?
I think it was like 1,010 chickens.
Oh, that's a lot of chickens. You'd have
That's
to
a
move.
lot of chickens.
It's a lot of chickens. So we just bought some eggs from the store instead.
Yeah. That makes at one point in time though, with the price of eggs, it would have maybe made sense.
Yeah, so we're probably not going to become chicken farmers, but I figured ChatGPT was going to get me the answer quicker than if I try to figure it out myself.
That's true. What about you, Nikki?
I Google everything.
Okay.
And I don't typically click on a video.
Really?
My attention span doesn't allow for that.
So with the
I have recently started searching things on TikTok.
Yeah.
If it's
Okay.
something that I want in video form.
So the
And I will
interesting
search it
thing
there.
about YouTube, what it's been doing is because before, if you have a specific question,
Mhm.
you might get like this 8-minute video, and you're like,
Right.
I don't have 8 minutes to do this. But what YouTube does now is it will actually pick out the segment that
Yeah.
has your
Noticed
answer
that.
in the video. So it gives you a 30-second clip rather than, and people using YouTube Shorts to make answers to the same
Right.
kind of questions as well.
Yeah, that's been helpful. I've noticed that Google will start giving me those little like it'll jump me forward in the video and just give
Yeah.
me the clip that I need. I have also noticed myself searching certain things on TikTok. Not
Interesting.
nearly as often. I'm not on TikTok as much as you or my wife Kelsey.
Nikki's all the time.
but
True.
there's certain things. I was listening to someone, ironically enough, on YouTube talk about how they search things on TikTok, because it used to be that you would like look and find like a blog that's like the top 10 things to
Yeah.
do in Kentucky. But now you go to TikTok and people who are actually in Kentucky are showing you the things that are
That's
cool to
true.
do.
I have planned almost our whole summer vacation to coastal Michigan via TikTok videos.
Interesting.
Mm.
Now, TikTok did come in handy as we were going to go on a cruise for the first time of
Mhm.
people actually going on and documenting their week.
Yeah.
Here are 10 things that I wish I knew as I was going to go on this cruise.
Mhm.
That a typical YouTube video, it just wasn't as good.
Yeah, you also have like the people who work on cruise ships and stuff.
Oh,
that
yeah.
they'll make
whole
videos and
thing.
show like life of a cruise ship employee and all of those things. It's crazy the amount of information. Like we used
It
to,
is.
I remember watching movies and we'd be like, "Who is that actor? What are the movies?" It's like, we'll never know.
We'll
So
never know.
the funny
You
thing
just don't-
was,
you never know.
so when we went on that cruise, because me and Malia, my wife, wanted to kind of be disconnected on the cruise, so we didn't actually pay for the internet package. So throughout the week, it was funny because there would be different questions in our head, like, "Oh, what is that answer?" And then we just wouldn't know.
Yeah.
We're like, "I guess we'll figure it out later or never," because we don't have a phone to look it up.
Yeah, that's
So it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, that's it. That is interesting. It's like we've had in Henderson, where Nikki and I live. We've had internet issues here recently. I guess
Oh,
with
that's terrible.
road construction and things like that. And there's been like just locked off of the internet for days at a time. It's like, wow, this is like the 90s. This is before
the
Jimmy was born.
worst. That's true.
The funny thing is that I have a fiber optic cable hanging from the utility pole in my backyard, just waiting to be run to my house. So
Oh,
every time the
no.
internet provider goes out, I'm like, "You're just asking to
Mhm.
be like you're not even trying to keep our business.
They don't care.
No.
You don't even want us. It's
So,
fine."
so it sounds like we're basically all Google people, or at least Google's,
That's
subsidiaries.
That's the gateway drug.
Yeah.
There's a reason that it is like a it's a verb now.
yeah.
Google.
Google.
You Google
Like
it.
Yahoo never got there.
No.
Bing. If you've used Bing, you're a loser.
We never
If you
said
Bing
just
it.
Yahoo it.
You just ask Jeeves. You just
Ask Jeeves.
Oh, ask Jeeves. I don't think it's.
That was before my time.
Yeah, that was
I've
like
heard of it though.
that was like AOL time.
Also
which
before
was
my time.
See, like I said, Jimmy's 10 years younger than me, and
I realized the other day that I'm way older than YouTube. So
Then YouTube.
yeah,
And
What-
YouTube's been around since the 60s. So Nikki is kicking still.
I graduated high school before YouTube was a thing.
Yeah, YouTube came out when I was in high school. I think
Hey, good for you.
2000, what, 5, 6?
I'll take your word for
It was,
it.
it was
We need to
2006.
Google it. Let us know in the comments. When
Yeah.
did Google come out?
It was,
Yeah.
YouTube.
it was 2006. Somebody hurt my feelings the other day with it.
Yeah.
It was a dating website before that. So
I didn't know that. I read the same book you
Oh.
read, I think.
yep. You should upload a video of yourself and try to find a mate.
Didn't stick.
Nope.
That didn't work.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
speaking of all the YouTube stuff, Jimmy, you have been sort of just entrenched in the YouTube world
That's
for
true.
as long as I've known you. That's a lot of the stuff that I've learned from you, besides the camera and lighting type stuff, like just YouTube strategy and all of that has just been something that you have a fascinating amount of information on. Now, I don't know that that's what you would say that you were made for, but I
Yeah.
am curious how you would just define, like, why are you here on Earth? Like, what were you made for?
Yeah. So when you asked me to be on the podcast, you know, that question of what were you made for, I don't know if I have a great answer. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I know what I was really made for. Now, I know what I enjoy doing. I know what kind of gives me energy. One of the questions that I like thinking through is, if you had $100 million in the bank, what would you do all day?
Mm.
So then, if money was not a thing at all, like, what would you spend your time doing? And just from kind of a macro perspective, I think it would be helping people kind of become the best versions of themselves.
Mm.
So on top of doing like the video, doing the YouTube stuff like that, I also really enjoy kind of taking my knowledge and then helping people apply it to their own situations and kind of breaking limiting beliefs and trying to get them to places that they didn't think they could get themselves.
Yeah, that's super cool. And that kind of transcends like whatever you're
Yeah,
doing for a
exactly.
living, like especially if you make whatever dollar amount you just
Yeah.
said,
100 million.
100 million, then
If you have it in the bank, then you gotta. Because I think if I didn't do anything, I would just be very bored and probably depressed if I just stayed at home all day.
yeah, that's no fun.
So then you just take all your knowledge that you learn and then just try to help people kind of apply it to their situation.
No, that's great. Well, so since that's not really a question you've kind of wrestled with
Yeah.
before. The kind of exercise that Nikki and I always do, we've done it for one another.
Yeah.
And we've done it with some high schoolers and just different people in different contexts. So it'll be a fun exercise to walk
I'm here
through
for it.
with you as we sort of just navigate through some of that stuff. So Nikki, you want to?
Well, before we move to that, because you said macro level, kind of
Yeah.
helping people see their potential and achieve that. Do you feel like you're doing that
Yeah.
currently? Like, do you feel like that's something that you are actively doing?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I think it's in different kind of environments. But yeah, as I'm learning things like YouTube, business, exercise, all that kind of stuff, just all the people around me that are also interested in that thing, then I'm very willing to take anything that I've learned and be like, hey, this is what has worked well for me, and I think I can help you do this as well.
Yeah, I can attest to that because that's that's how I've learned a lot of the things I've
Hey,
learned.
I'm happy to help.
and you've been very generous with that information.
I think it makes the world a bigger place.
It does. It does.
So we're going to start. So we're, like Josh mentioned, we're going to walk you through this kind of exercise that is very helpful to discover you're made for this, or to kind of narrow it down and
Sure.
see kind of where you're at and connect the dots. So my favorite question in the personality category is, what are the parts of you that are immutable? The parts of you that are so Jimmy that if you turned them off, it would be like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say one, especially if you know me closely, would be my sense of humor.
Mhm.
Funny fella, I'd like to think. And then also more and more is having a growth mindset. This idea of kind of anything I set my mind to, I believe that I can make happen. And if I'm a certain way, I don't think, well, I'm just that way, so I'll always be that way.
Right.
So just always believing that I can grow. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else specifically. I think those are two of the things that kind of make me unique, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
If that
think
makes sense.
I think that the growth minded thing, we talked about that sort of in some of our intro episodes. We started talking about, what is made for this, why is it important, those types of things. And one of the kind of the tensions that we have to walk is, like, we feel like we were created in a specific way, unique and
Sure.
and all of those things. But that doesn't mean that you can just sit in the fixed mindset, like where you're just like, well, I'm I'm bad at math.
This is just how I am.
Yeah, or I'm bad at I'm not good with people, so I'm just not going to be good with people. And
You can just be bad at math.
Yeah.
I've quit doing it. I told you.
yeah, I know that's true. The
But
math
you can
thing,
get
I've
better, Nikki. You
moved
really
on.
can.
you can ask
can.
ChatGPT.
I've moved on.
You can ask
If you
ChatGPT.
set your mind to it, you can do it, Nikki. I believe in you.
No, but the growth versus fixed mindset thing is a big deal, and I think that's a great quality to have, especially as one of something that you would consider immutable about you. So I think that's great.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's always been like that, but definitely it was funny because kind of what got me on this kind of self-improvement business kick was James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these aren't necessarily character traits, but the idea of doing kind of these small actions that lead to bigger results over time, and then also just thinking in like decades, not years. I
Mhm.
think that kind of started me on that journey. So those are things that just kind of my mindset. But yeah, kind of the growth mindset being that however I am today, in 10 years, I could be totally different in all aspects.
Yeah, that's a great book too. I need to reread it.
I've read it probably 3 times so far.
Yeah, that's why you're ahead of me.
It's all the things.
That's good.
I read the blinks on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
So a part of this exercise that we do, and of course we didn't do this with you ahead of time,
That's okay.
but we
that's what
always
makes it fun.
That's true. On the spot.
we give links to lots of different personality tests because
Okay.
those can be really helpful,
Yeah.
especially if you're not a naturally self-aware person or you're not able to kind of perceive yourself.
Sure.
Those types of things can be really helpful. So are you familiar with personality tests? Do you like personality tests or take them?
So I think I took a handful of them when I started working here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only thing I remember from them was that I'm naturally more introverted.
Really?
And yes, 100%.
Huh.
And then I am also, what is the other one? I forget the other one. I had it and now it's gone. But that was kind of my main takeaway. So I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in those.
Okay.
And I've not taken a lot of them on my own.
So
Yeah.
of the ones that you have taken,
Yeah.
and we probably have access to those.
Oh
I
yeah.
know I do in Google Sheets.
Oh.
I could look you up and figure you
I
out
know.
right now. What is your favorite personality test? What of those, like, which one were you like, oh, that's
I don't even remember
help
which
one
ones
out
I
those things.
took.
Did you take the Enneagram? Did we talk about that one time?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wait, no.
It's like a 1, 2, 3,
Yes,
4,
I did take
through
the
9.
Enneagram. Yes, I am a 1, 4, 6,
Yeah.
7. 7. 7, that sounds right. No,
Yeah.
no, I'm not a 7. I'm something else.
I was like,
No, Chris
okay.
Shadowin's a 7. I am a 2 or 4, I think. No, not a 4. That's Michael Caron. I don't remember. I'll remember it.
Oh, that makes sense with
Uh,
Michael.
Yeah, he's a 4.
I was kind
Oh, sorry, I'm a 1. I
I'm
think,
a 1, so
I think that makes
Okay.
most sense. What is a 1?
a 1 is like the perfectionist or the reformer. You like to look at things and try to make them better, try to improve upon the world around you.
Yeah. And what's a 3? Because that might be 1 too.
An achiever. That's
Okay,
a-
I think I was real close between a 1 and a 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm interested, or I guess not interested, but I wouldn't have picked you as an introvert just because you're so like you seem to work a room well. You're good
Yeah.
with people, and
Well, I've learned to be more extroverted, but left to my own devices,
Mhm.
I would much rather just stick to myself, and especially with people I don't know, like it is terribly hard for me to go out and just start a conversation.
Yeah.
And typically, unless it's people I'm really comfortable with, I leave just feeling very drained by it. But I think as time has gone on, I've seen the benefits of being an extrovert, so I can kind of put on that face.
you can fake it. Until
Right.
you-
But
yeah.
I also like speaking in front of a crowd of people or a room of people. I feel more comfortable doing that rather than speaking to someone one-on-one.
Yeah. My husband is that way. Like
Oh, yeah.
he will present on if he has like subject matter expert knowledge, he can present in front of a room full of people. Small talk gets him.
I
Mhm.
can't do
Like
small
he
talk.
can't small
I
talk.
hate it.
You corner him and he's going to say something awkward.
You're
He
like,
just
"Ah."
will.
I don't know.
What I've learned at the introvert extrovert thing
Yeah.
is not necessarily how you present to other people, it's what recharges you.
Yeah,
Mhm. And
exactly.
And so if being in public settings drains you, then most likely you're an introvert.
Yep.
If being by yourself drains you, then you're an extrovert. Wherever you draw energy from is typically, and then you have those unique like
Ambiverts.
ambiverts.
Yeah. So typically, if I'm like spending time by myself, like I am more than happy just sitting at my house by myself watching YouTube videos.
Yeah,
That's how I recharge.
yeah, that's interesting. Well, you do a good
I
job
put on a good
of,
extrovert
of
face.
working the extrovert.
Hey,
Did you go through the Strengths Finder?
I think so, but that's again probably been 3.5 years
Okay.
ago. But if you have any like things from it that are you this, then maybe I could remember
Yeah.
some
There's
of
like
it.
34
Well,
of them.
listening to you talk and
Yeah.
that kind of micro level, it sounded like maybe you might have individualization,
Mm.
because
Oh.
that's my top strength, and it's
Oh.
very much seeing in the individual and looking at their strengths
Yeah.
and being able to kind of feel that out in people and then pull it out and
Mm.
help them find their spot.
Yeah.
And so listening to you talk kind of said maybe
Maybe
Yeah.
it could be.
that's in your
Could
top
be.
strengths.
Is that good for me?
They're all good for you if you
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
if
as long
if
as you
you
develop
I'll
them.
have
You
them
have
all.
to know them
I have them all.
to develop them.
yeah you gotta
I
yeah
have a well-rounded personality.
yeah you
That's what
so
people
does
keep telling me.
Nikki. I'm not well rounded. I think I have like extremes, but
Hey,
Nikki
I am pretty evenly keeled. That is the thing. If things are going wrong, or if like even like with my family, like I will never get in arguments with people, and I'm not quick to anger by any means. Like I almost never really get angry, so not many things can bother me.
Mm.
So I don't know if that is.
So if you are an Enneagram 1, you probably lean heavy on your 9 wing
is
because
a
9s are the
peacemaker.
peacemakers.
Yes. Oh, maybe I think 1 and 9 were the close ones actually. Now
Okay.
that you said that, because I forgot it even went up to 9. So yes, 9, peacemaker, 100%. So I am a people pleaser all around. But because we had a staff retreat where we all did the Enneagram and went through, and that's why I remembered different people's numbers. But I wrote down that I was a 9, but I want more and more to be an 8.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Because I'm kind of the furthest from an 8. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to be an 8.
So in the Enneagram, you can kind of you naturally lean towards one wing or the
Yeah.
other, so 1 or 8, but you can develop and pull from
Oh, I
them.
know. I'll change it right now.
Because I'm a 6 and I lean heavy into the 7, which is the like fun seeking,
Yeah.
avoid bad feelings, tell the joke over the
That's
trauma kind of
foreshadowing.
thing. And the 5 is like a learner, and I try to pull from it. But
See, well, that's the thing too, is because I think more naturally I am kind of the peacemaker and the people pleaser, but because the joke was that I'm a 9, but I'm going to decide to be an 8. So
Mhm.
I also think that if you want to, you can change your personality.
Yeah, I think you have natural inclinations, but you can always work against it. Although it may create tension if you're pushing too hard against how you were built.
That maybe. Well, because James Clear's whole thing was because he was talking about you like when you're starting a habit, instead of saying, "Hey, I want to lose 10 pounds," first figure out what kind of person that you want to
Yeah.
be,
right.
and then he said every action is a vote for the kind of person that you want to be. So then, if you say, "Well, I want to be a writer," then every time you write something, that is a vote to get you closer to becoming that writer. And then if you have more evidence than not, then you can kind of actually start living that out, that you are that writer. So
Yeah.
I kind of approach that with a lot of things, is even if I'm not that now, if I do enough things in that direction, then I will be that thing.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about Enneagram is because it goes to your core desires.
Uh-huh.
And so that's kind of the deciding factor. Like I always tell people if they're like, oh, I don't know, it said I was this, but I don't know. I'm like, look at the core desire. Because
Yeah.
for like a 9, like their core desire is like harmony
Sure.
and peace. That's what they're always striving for. Now, can you achieve peace and harmony by being a straightforward, direct 8 type of
Sure.
individual? Absolutely. And so knowing your core desire, you can kind of go after it
But
Mhm.
I would
in
also,
ways that serve you better
yeah,
than
that makes sense.
being kind of the people pleaser. Like I'm a 6 and they're typically kind of
Yeah.
fearful type of people because the core desire is safety.
Mm.
And so that's something that knowing that about myself, I can kind of react
Yeah.
or respond to things differently when I start to feel unsafe. I can remind myself of all the reasons that I am safe
Yeah.
and those types of things. So I think you absolutely can choose to respond in
Now,
different
do you
ways.
think at different times in your life that kind of core desire will change for you?
Mm.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? You
I
say,
think that is something that and we'll talk about it kind of towards the end of this
sure.
experiences. That's one of those things that because of just repeated experiences and safety being threatened and challenged and that security,
Yeah.
that's just something that is core ingrained
But
in
if
me.
I went through those same experiences later, then I'm like, oh, instead of being the peacemaker, I now value that safety where that's my core desire.
Right.
So if I go through those experiences, then I could, in theory, go from a 9 to a 6.
Maybe.
Do you think there's anything in your upbringing, just like as you were,
Yeah.
I don't know, under under 8 or so
Hmm.
that has sort of shaped you into a peacemaking type of individual?
I mean, probably. So, a little bit of my background is so when I was younger, so my dad was usually pretty stable, but for a large amount of my childhood and then going into like junior high and maybe even high school, is my mom was on drugs. And oftentimes that would be like my parents fighting, or my mom would leave for, days at a time, not come back.
Mm,
So, and then I would tell my wife, Malia, like all these different things that obviously in the moment it seems normal, but then telling someone else, you're like, oh, okay, my childhood was kind of messed up. So,
yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I could see just kind of in retrospect how that would kind of be the peacemaker. But
Mhm.
I could also argue that why isn't my core desire not safety because of that?
Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
And so that would be individual wiring because I had a similar kind of tumultuous there was always a like a psychologically unsafe
Sure.
adult. And so my natural desire went to seek safety at all cost and to find security at all costs where you kind of peacemake.
Yeah.
And so I think that is where your wiring comes in.
Sure.
How you respond to those things
Mm.
is because of the way that you were wired
Yeah.
and kind of your survival mechanisms are
That makes
just the way
sense.
that you respond. I believe because so as a 6, when I'm really healthy, I will go to a 9.
Yeah.
And so I think in unhealth,
Mm.
you would go to a 6.
Oh, okay.
So
Mm.
as a 9, if you're unhealthy, then you would start to seek safety and
So was I
security.
healthy as a child though?
I don't know.
It's hard
And
to
then
tell.
in growth, you would go into an achiever,
Yeah.
which is a 3, where I go to achiever when I'm not healthy.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Interesting.
This
So
is very complex.
yeah,
It is very
it is.
complex.
It's an interest. I think that's why I like it so much because there is so much room
It's fascinating for
for
sure.
the individual to come out,
Yeah.
and every Enneagram number, each individual looks differently, even if they're the same Enneagram
Yeah.
number. So,
Well, that's the thing. It's and obviously the Enneagram. There's some weight to that because you can see kind of your core desires and things
mhm.
like that. But my pushback is always like this growth mindset that is now
Right.
so deep inside of me. I'm like, if I want to be a 6, I can be a 6. I don't care what you
I can do
say.
whatever I
Well, you
want to
really don't
do.
want to be a 6.
That's true. Maybe I'll go be some other number that's not a 6.
We're paranoid.
That's fair enough. I'm not typically super paranoid.
So what's fascinating about what I find fascinating about the whole made for this exercise is that there are all these different pieces. There's the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs, and there's the Strengths Finder, and there's the spiritual gift tests, and there's all these things, and they all can kind of get you close-ish to
Yeah.
you, but they're never really. I mean, it's never you. It's still a textbook version of like kind of close to who you're going to be. And the made for this, it kind of aggregates multiple ones of those, which gets you a little closer, but it's still not going to get you. You're still going to be the only one of you, and there's no book or test or anything that's actually going to say like, well, that's a Jimmy Marshall.
Yeah.
and,
Exactly.
and so I think that's cool. So moving kind of beyond the personality piece, which is kind of the largest, that's the overarching
Yeah.
thing. Like there's a dozens of those little personality tests and things like that that can give you that generalized version of you. But then beyond that, we start to look at like, what are you super passionate about? And one of the questions that I love to kind of walk through with people on the passion is, what are the things that wake you up in the morning and the things that keep you up at night?
Hmm. Yeah. So going definitely one of them is kind of this ongoing process of trying to become the best version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of any work, anything that you're doing, there's a quote by Alex Ramosi that says, "The work works on you more than you work on it." So if you're at McDonald's and you're sweeping the floor, then that work can kind of work on you in the sense of, hey, this is making me a more disciplined person, or I'm going to do things that I don't like to achieve a certain goal.
Sure.
So that's kind of how I approach a lot of things, is just waking up and saying, okay, what are the things I'm doing today, and how can that make me kind of a better version of myself?
What are the things that keep you tossing and turning at night?
Yeah, I can't toss and turn at night. I get up at 4:30, so I am in bed at 8:30 and I'm out. I don't have time to toss and turn.
Oh, that's nice.
What is that like?
I can't fall asleep like that.
No, I am very disciplined in that sense, because if I stay up till 9 or 9:30, I'll feel it the next day. So I don't know if there's anything that is it in the sense of like what stresses you out,
Well,
or
like problems that you want to solve, things that you're just like, man, like I want to find a solution to this.
yeah,
I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact. Like those types of things that just kind of keep your
Sure.
mind going. Not necessarily in a stressful way. It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily have to be negative things, but just those things that you just like think on and ruminate on, wanting to find solutions for.
Yeah, so I don't know if really I have anything kind of big picture or macro level. It's because I'm so fluid in the things that I'm doing, so it really is kind of just specific to whatever problems I'm literally facing at
Mm.
time where my brain is always because I usually have multiple projects going.
Mhm.
So my brain's always all over the place trying to figure out different solutions to all the different problems in my life. But I don't know if there's anything specific as far as the big picture or macro that I can think of.
So, is there anything that when you see just in the world, whether it's on Twitter or
Yeah.
X or TikTok or wherever,
Formerly known as Twitter.
yeah, or YouTube, the things that you see that are just going on in the world, and you're like, I want to be a part of that, like you, it makes you want to say, put me in the game, coach. Like this is my moment.
Hmm. Trying to think here. Honestly, like I said, and this isn't again kind of a big picture thing, but when I see people that are doing things and they're not kind of achieving the potential or doing the things the way that they could,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm like I want to be a part of helping them get to that next level. But maybe because I'm just a selfish person, there's not like this cause in the world right now where I'm like, oh yes, I need to go change this about the world.
Well, I feel like, and kind of the last little segment or one of the last few questions that we ask in this passion category is, if you knew that you couldn't fail, what would you do? And I feel like you touched on that with your $100 million endeavor.
Yeah.
I feel like it may not be on CNN or Fox News or whatever your choice color is on all of that, but I feel like you do seem passionate about the idea of helping people achieve potential.
Yeah.
And I think that's an honorable sort of passion to
Well, thank
have.
you.
Yeah, there you go.
Made me feel better about myself.
There you go. Now you just got to get $100 million, and then
That's
you'll be
true. Well, and that's the thing is too is you want to figure out what you're passionate about, and then you don't wait until okay, once I have everything figured out. But
Right.
how can I be doing this now today?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I try to do. I try to help people out.
That's good. You are good at it.
I try my best.
So the next section kind of lumped together strengths and skills because so you have things that you're naturally kind of inclined towards,
Yeah.
natural giftings. Not to say that you wouldn't have to develop them,
Sure.
but there's things that you're kind of naturally inclined to, and then there are skills that you've developed that
Uh-huh.
you've actually kind of worked towards.
Yeah.
So what are some things that kind of come naturally to you that enable you to live out what you kind of perceive to be your made for this?
Yeah, so I was actually kind of thinking about this the other day because obviously this doesn't let me live on my made for this, but like something that comes super naturally is like anything kind of athletic. Like
Mhm.
my wife is always mad at me. She's like, anything you try, you're just automatically good at. I'm like, okay,
I know
that's
somebody like that. It is annoying.
it is annoying, but yeah. So there's a lot of things where I'm kind of naturally good, but because one question that people ask you when you're thinking about like what you should be doing in either career or business and stuff like that, it's like what were the things that you were doing just for fun as a kid?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think partially because of my childhood trauma, a lot of my memories are like I don't remember them very well.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I did remember is one of the things me and my friends would do is we would have this like table set up in the living room and we would grab random objects from the room and we'd put them up and do like these infomercials where we're trying to sell to the other people in the room.
Yeah.
So I, I don't know how because I do thinking of natural inclination for whatever reason I really like sales and
Mhm.
doing that. So I don't know because I also don't think sales has to be slimy and like you're trying to
Right.
manipulate people. So I think kind of this inclination to help people and see kind of the individual and care about them, and then sales as well. But that's kind of also in the other corner.
You and I
It's
were
all over the place.
you and I were just talking about this the other day. Am I have started a small business and I hate sales.
I love sales.
And it's not good to hate sales when you have to sell things
That's true.
to make money.
That is a problem.
Yeah,
So
but
I don't know where that, but I think thinking about that, that was one of the things for whatever reason I really like doing. So that's one of my natural inclinations.
yeah, and you seem to be pretty good at it
Sell
naturally.
it.
Sell it. You can sell things.
It's funny that you said that because so my made for this
Yeah.
involves kind of working with teenagers and helping them discover things. And one of the exercises that I do with eighth graders is I have them close their eyes and think back to like a summer break day in third grade when they had no responsibilities and what were they doing.
Yeah.
And those are usually the things that come out like, oh, I would like play school with my dolls, or I like made mud pies and I
Yeah.
really love to cook now. And like a lot of times those things you did as a kid really do
Yeah.
kind of give you some insight into what your natural giftings are, things that you
Yeah.
love, and things that you lean into. Um, so, what skills do you feel like you have honed that help you in kind of your endeavors to help people be the best them that they can be?
So this is kind of a skill or a character trait, but kind of long-term thinking, discipline, kind of self-discipline, and then business was definitely one of them because on top of like reading kind of self-help books, I also do consume a whole lot of business material.
Mhm.
So that, and then obviously everything in the world of video production and YouTube, I've spent a whole lot of time just kind of reverse engineering how people do it, and then obviously doing it for myself, and then with the church that I'm working with doing that. So, and that's why kind of what I do on the site as well is I help people that are entrepreneurs, online coaches, and things like that who already have a business
Mhm.
that want to excel on YouTube. Since that's kind of my specialty and what I know is I help them kind of get their message out to more people by making YouTube content.
Do you think that your inclination to the video and the YouTube and all that stuff is purposeful? Like, do you think that's part of your purpose, or do you think that that's just a mechanism through which you are kind of trying to
I don't
live
know.
your other
So I
purposes?
was thinking about when I like all through junior high or as soon as I could, as far as my age was, I what I did with my friends all day every day was I watched YouTube videos and played video games.
Mm.
And obviously, I don't play video games for a living, but I watched a whole lot of YouTube, and that was super interesting to me. The whole kind of online creator atmosphere. So I don't know if that's necessarily purposeful in that we're like, hey, this is kind of core to what I think I should be doing,
Mhm.
but it's definitely one of my passions. So that's kind of the avenue. But yeah, thinking of kind of the purposeful, it is kind of that macro of learning as much as I can and trying to be the best version of myself, and then taking the same principles and lessons and then helping other people get there as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
Do you feel like you were intentional about seeking out like the YouTube type video skills with your made for this in mind?
No.
Or did it kind of come after you had honed those skills and then you were like, hey, I can actually use this?
No, so it's funny. So, most of the things as far as my career and the skills I've developed have kind of been by chance, or obviously looking back, like I can see how God has kind of connected the dots and kind of prepared me for where I am. So, because funny enough, like any job I've had, I've never actually went looking for. They've all kind of like
Mm.
fallen into my lap, which I feel kind of bad saying for
Cute.
all the people. That's why my wife hates me. She's like, just everything works out great for you, and you're just so blessed.
It must be nice to be God's favorite.
I'm too blessed to be stressed. So, but I mean, because it started with just on YouTube back in high school, I started watching Photoshop tutorials because I thought that was interesting. And then that led to me having where I designed senior banners at school and did that. And then I think, and then I ended up, it was funny. There was one time where I was going to go on Instagram on my computer just because I was just checking Instagram. At this point, I think I was doing some photography on the side, but didn't actually have a job. So I was doing that, and normally I hit I, and then it autofills, and I'll hit enter.
Mhm.
And this time, instead of Instagram, it autofilled to Indeed, which
Oh,
is the job hosting site. So I click enter. I'm like, oh, this is an Instagram. So then I was there and I'm like, well, let me look around since I'm here. And I found a job that was doing church directory pictures for a company called Lifetouch.
oh, yeah.
So I applied and they called me like the next day and like hired me over the phone. And then I ended up meeting Malia through Twitter, X formerly known as Twitter. I DM'd her on Twitter and that's how we got connected.
Yeah,
And
that's how it
then
goes.
and then I started kind of volunteering with her youth group there
Oh,
and getting connected there and became an intern. And then one of the other guys that worked there, and this was right around COVID, since everything was shut down, he's like, I know you've done pictures in the past and you know how to do graphic design and that kind of thing. Have you ever considered doing video? And I'm like, I think my camera can do video. So then this was because at that point I was kind of doing graphics and social media stuff for them, and I consumed a lot of YouTube content on how to do that. And then from there, I picked up video and then taught myself through YouTube how to do all that. And then how I got this job was one of the guys that I work with there. There was an opening here at One Life, and I wasn't looking for anything, but he's like, "Hey, we've seen your video stuff. I think you should apply just in case." And it was a very kind of long road to get here, but ended up doing this. And then my passion has kind of been YouTube, and I don't even remember exactly how it was because we've made like our online sermons and stuff and put them on YouTube, but one thing led to another where we started making kind of YouTube content for it. And then obviously now it's getting a lot of traction and doing well. And then at the same time, I'm learning kind of self discipline, I'm learning business. So it's all kind of coming together. We're now working with entrepreneurs and business people and then helping them with YouTube. So I can kind of see the milestones all the way where it wasn't like I was being intentional about it, but it kind of led me to where I am now.
Mm.
So this is off topic, on topic. I have an almost 16-year-old,
Okay.
and so we are navigating, future plans and all that
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
And we have really kind of been looking at all of the ways to kind of avoid the college scam,
Oh, yeah.
to avoid buying a
I'm all for it.
degree. And so it sounds like listening to you talk that maybe you don't have like necessarily like formal education in
Absolutely
this
not.
area.
Zero.
So
Actually, I did go to semester, and then I think I went a full year actually, but then I've dropped out.
okay, so that's why I was curious if you pursued it and like purchased a degree in
Well,
this.
so I am actually in the mindset of now that we're kind of in this hybrid of education where for the same amount of money or even much cheaper, you can find someone who's doing the thing that you're doing and pay them to teach you.
Right.
So Alex Ramosi says one of the only ways to speed up time is learn from other people's mistakes.
Mhm.
So I mean that's what I've done. Not only just teaching myself on YouTube, but now I've found all these kind of experts in their field and then paid them for their time to teach me what they learned. And the more I invest in that, the more it kind of speeds up the process of, well, now I could spend 3 to 5 years figuring it out myself, or I could pay this guy and he
Yeah.
teach me how he's already done it,
Mhm.
and it gets you a lot further, a lot quicker.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
That seems to have worked. That's it.
Seems to have worked.
Seems to have
Well,
worked.
yeah, and sometimes it is kind of a big investment, but like I said, you kind of speed it up. And because I mean, there's are a lot of people where they go to college and they're like, okay, you go to college, you find a job, and you work there for 50 years, and you retire, and it's
Right.
all normal like that. But I think just because maybe it's my age and the internet, that there's a lot more possibilities.
Yeah.
And I will say, I absolutely was not always like this. I think Malia, my wife, was a big, that was kind of one of the turning points where before I met her, I was doing like the photography thing, but I was not kind of long term thinking at all. I'm like, oh, I don't need to go to college. I do graphic design, I do photography, all this stuff. But I was not very disciplined, and not very forward thinking or anything like that. And then she kind of had me kind of grow up where being with her, and she actually was the one that told me you need to figure out what you're doing with your life. Like you can't just
Yeah.
live it a day at a time. So that's why I actually ended up going to college for the year, and then after that, now we're kind of seeing, okay, this isn't going to help me at all as far as the things that I'm doing, but that was kind of the catalyst of, hey, I need to grow up and actually figure out what I'm doing. And so that was kind of the turning point that got me on the track that I am now.
Did you tell her that you were just gonna accidentally stumble onto Indeed and just accidentally get a job?
Yes, yes, exactly.
She loves that. Is that?
So yeah, for my next job, I'm just waiting around, and then I'm sure it'll come to me.
That's funny.
The definition of going with the flow.
That's going with
That's
the
what's
flow.
happened.
I like.
Yeah, because my very first job, I remember it was about to graduate high school, and I was in the Casey's gas station line there, not looking for a job or anything. And then my friend's sister was like the manager there, and I was just like checking out with my drink. She's like, "Do you need a job?" I'm like, not really, but I feel like I need to get one at this point. So that was my first job. But yeah, every single job I've had, it's kind of been like this thing that's just presented itself to me.
Interesting. It's quite the experience to have.
So I just hang out until someone tells me otherwise.
Well, you're gonna have the people here at One Life trying to start running screens so people don't get to you.
I know, it's
Like, don't talk
shutting
to
down his
Jimmy.
email. Yeah.
Got zone defense going. No.
Don't
You
talk
do
to
it.
Jimmy. You're gonna offer him a job, and then
That's well, I think at this point I don't want to work for anyone else. I like the flexibility and everything here. So if I was to do anything, it would absolutely just be doing my own thing for myself.
just
There's a lot more potential there.
business. Yeah. So the last sort of leg of all this,
Yeah.
and so the way that this whole kind of process works is, personality stuff is very generalized.
Yeah.
Passion is more specific to you, but there's other people who are passionate about similar things, and it goes down and down and down until the very end is your experiences are unlike anyone else's experiences who has ever lived or who ever will live, just you.
That's true.
And so how would you say your experiences in life, the good
Mhm.
stuff, the bad stuff, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Just anything you've experienced, how would you say that has shaped you into who you are today?
Hmm. Yeah, going back to the, being the nine, the peacemaker, that probably a lot of it did come from my childhood, even though I can't like pinpoint,
Right.
oh, like I was trying to kind of make things be the peacemaker in those environments. Um, I do think that kind of my concept that everything's going to work out, it all come together. I think the different experiences, like with the jobs and stuff like that, and just with a lot of different things that not only I experienced, but me and my wife have experienced, where we go into the situation not knowing, hey, where this is going to go or how it's going to work, but we all always trust that God has a plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
So then going into new situations, we're like, we don't see how the dots are going to connect, but we can look at all these other times where the dots have connected. And then one of the cool things I do is called Homework for Life. And so what that is, I got it from a book called Storyworthy. And so every day I write down a sentence or two that kind of summarizes a day, or you write down like a 5-minute story-worthy moment. And most of them are kind of lame because I have a very boring life. But when cool things happen or bad things happen, then because I've been doing that for probably over 1,000 days now.
Wow.
So I have this Excel sheet where it's 1,000 days worth of story-worthy moments where you can go back and say, oh, this either I'll look it up like when did this event happen, or I can be like, oh, March 2nd of 2022, this is what happened. So you can kind of scroll through there, and so when you forget kind of what you've gone through, then you can literally go through and like, oh, I can see how this day we were super stressed out because we didn't know how it was going to happen, and then 3 weeks later we saw it all come together in a way that we didn't expect at all. So then you can kind of rely on that evidence in the past to kind of give you just that hope for the future.
Yeah, that's really really cool. How do you feel your unique experiences in life have given you like the credibility that you have that I may not have because I haven't lived those
Sure.
experiences? What kind of credibility do you think you've gained through your life?
Credibility. So I don't know if this is necessarily the direction you're wanting to go, but as far as like
You're leading the direction.
okay. As far as like any of the things I do in like business, YouTube, lighting, anything like that, where I feel like I'm semi proficient,
Mm-hmm.
I claim to know nothing, but I find people who are experts that do know things, and then I find out what they know, and then I basically relay the information or relay what they're doing. And like in the YouTube world, that served us very well, where we find people that are doing similar content to us, see how are they doing it, and then kind of reverse engineering it.
Hmm.
So not having an idea of, I don't bring any kind of personal credibility to the table myself, but I can find someone who does, and then I can use their information, the way they do things, to get kind of the best outcome here.
That's fascinating. The way your mind works is unique, I think. But so, is there anything though that's nobody else has ever like you have unique Jimmy experiences? Is there anything there that you like when I walk into a room? These are the things that I know that I can speak to because I've walked this path. And
I think another way to say that too is what rooms or tables can you set around that maybe we couldn't
Yeah.
because of
yeah,
your unique experiences?
Hmm. I I think honestly, like the YouTube thing is something that I feel like that's one of the unique things that I have a good amount of knowledge on. But one, as far as my credibility and things like that, that's not even something I ever really consider just because I don't personally think it's that important to me. So that's why I don't have really a good answer for it, because
that's
that's not really something I've thought about before.
that's fair. That's an interesting thought exercise. Some of the stuff like when I think back, there's a quote.
Hmm.
I should really look up who said this because I've quoted it now 3 or 4 times and I can't remember who said it. But it's basically that people will admire you for your strengths,
Yeah.
but they will connect with you in your weaknesses.
Mm.
And so I kind of think back over
Henry
my
Ford,
life.
I think.
Probably so. It's probably Henry Ford. There's times in my life that I look back on though, and I'm like, man, that was a rough season.
Yeah.
But I made it through. Like you said, the
Oh, yeah.
dots connected.
Totally.
And then down the road sometime, uh, who knows when,
Yeah.
I may be presented with the opportunity to say, speak into the life of someone who's navigating a
Sure.
similar storm that I survived.
Yeah. So when you put it like that way, one of the things that has been kind of helpful for me is obviously looking back, my childhood probably wasn't ideal and probably somewhat traumatic, but having that as something that I went through, then people that are in similar situations,
Mhm.
especially with like their parents are in drugs or alcohol and stuff like that, or even sometimes the parents who are doing that, then that gives me just another level of empathy for them. And then
Mhm.
also, because I don't think a lot of people expect me to be from that background, like, you seem like you're functioning well. Where'd all this trauma go? So it's probably just buried 10 levels deep,
It's the
and
sense of humor. That's
we'll
why.
deal with that later. But so I think that there's been a couple situations where I can, when you tell someone that you've been through something similar,
Mhm.
even if you don't have an answer for them, it's nice to have someone, hey, I went through all this and it did end up in a good place, and that's possible.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's a great way to leverage those because those are negatives and we've all
Yeah.
had them in different contexts. I don't have that experience. So that's not a credibility that I'll ever have.
Sure.
But I grew up in a full time ministry household. That's an interesting experience.
Oh,
And my dad had a terminal illness. Like that's an interesting experience. Negative things, but like they've given me an authority on certain conversations that I
makes
couldn't have
sense.
had without those. Um, but yeah, that's fascinating. That's a good piece of credibility. Um, Nikki, is there anything else that you're thinking that that we should just hit before we wrap this up?
That's all the questions.
That is most of the questions that we have on our
I
list.
do still want to know the answer to if
What's
you knew
that?
you couldn't fail, what would you do?
Yeah.
If I knew I couldn't fail, what would I do? I don't know. What? I think I would just keep doing the stuff I'm doing.
Well, that's a good place to be.
Well, because it is the idea of, and I think the possibility of you failing is actually very valuable, because if you knew you couldn't fail, then you aren't kind of developed as a person either.
Mm.
Because Alex Mosey talks about, a lot of my quotes come from Alex Mosey, but he was talking about, like, if you were in a video game and you were trying to build this character that was super resilient, strong, like all the kind of max attributes, would you have them, like, to get to that point, you have to go through a lot of things. A lot of things have to go wrong. You have to fail a lot. You have to kind of go through the really rough times to build those skills. And if you always just have an easy life and everything goes according to plan, then you're not going to be able to build those. So I don't know what I would do, and I don't know if I would necessarily even want a situation where I knew I couldn't fail.
Doesn't give you enough of the challenge.
Let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
You're not playing right.
I'm sorry.
Let's say
Okay.
that I can guarantee you
Uh-huh.
whatever is a desirable YouTube subscribership
Sure.
and that all of your videos will go viral.
Yeah.
What would you choose
To
the
make a channel
content to
on.
be? What would the content be?
So
Like if it's going to be a huge
The
success.
Mr. Beast success.
Yeah.
So here's I would skip it. I would, again, not playing your your question correctly. So what I would do is I would do business stuff that, whether I cared about or not, I would get that $100 million in the bank and then do what I really want to do.
Which is, do you mean
Help
for your
people.
channel?
Just so I would have a business that I was running. I would, if I knew I couldn't fail, that we're in this imaginary world, I would just basically make so much money where it's not a problem, where then I can do kind of the macro where now I'm just learning things, applying them to my life, and then helping people do the same.
Hmm.
So where it doesn't matter if you fail.
And it would be, when you help people achieve their potential, you're more looking at like the business side of things, the content side of things, or
Honestly, a lot of it comes down to kind of mindset and their, like I said, limiting beliefs and stuff like that. Because I mean, you can be successful, but you can still also have all of these kind of internal struggles that are really bad for you. So, kind of showing people that, hey, you can do things that you don't think you can do.
yeah, but you're probably not going to go build homes in Haiti, if I had to guess, right?
Yeah, I can't build a birdhouse if you paid me.
I can't either. I think Nikki
Yeah,
builds
so-
all my stuff.
So yeah, it would be more of, kind of using my expertise and things I'm passionate about to help people do the same thing that I'm trying to do.
That's cool.
But to answer your question, get a lot of money and then do what I want.
that sounds like a good life. So Jimmy, where can people find you, or where do you want to point
I'm
people?
down here at One Life Church East in Evansville. I'm usually on the screen. You can see me there, and then if you want to follow me on Twitter or subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're interested in all things YouTube, it is Jimmy Marshall YT.
YT for YouTube.
YouTube, yep.
Yeah.
So that's all my stuff, and
What is this Twitter that you?
you know about Twitter. X. I'm
Oh.
sorry, X.
No, I'll put a link for those
Perfect.
2 or 3 things in the show notes. But yeah, that's cool. Well, Jimmy, thanks for being here. Thanks for loaning us your studio.
Hey,
I think when we go back to our home studio, it's gonna be
it's so sad.
it's gonna be disappointing. We'll have to have you come back down sometime and help us
You're roughing it.
turn some knobs and make things even a little bit better.
You do it.
Or you can just make a YouTube video to help us do it.
That's
from here.
true, and then I'll help a lot of more people too.
That's
Here's
right.
how you set up your small home studio.
That's right. Even smaller than the ones that you can find on YouTube now.
Yes, exactly. So
about-
we got 3 feet by 3 feet in here, and we want to fit 6 people.
Yeah, I need a couch and a love seat and 2 chairs.
We could do it.
We can do it. Cool. Well, thanks again, Jimmy, for being here and
you.
sharing this with us. And I think that's going to wrap us up for this week's episode of the Made for This podcast. If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a comment, leave us a rating, do whatever it is that the platform you're listening to us on allows you to do. We would love to connect with you wherever that is. And until next time, don't forget to go out there and live your Made for This.